fabulously diverse country of Greece. It'll take me from her historic cities to her most remote outposts. I'll be meeting Greeks from all walks of life and learning about their traditions and the way they live. You see one think that's a jump and then you think this one isn't, but it is. Greece is also the birthplace of European history. This is where Western civilization began. Drama, democracy, language, science, medicine. This country has given us so much, and it's influenced the fabric of our everyday life. In this program, I'm going to explore some of the 1,400 Greek islands. Each has its own story to tell, with a fascinating history spanning thousands of years. It's always very strange to know that where you are is exactly where people from biblical times or history books or legends were. Here. It was here. Along the way, I'll be taking my research seriously. I shall ignore health and safety at my peril. They don't suddenly just go blip like that, do they?
Sometimes.
Oh, well, okay.
Sometimes.
And we'll meet a Greek shipping magnate in a journey to find out how one of the world's greatest maritime nations has influenced so much of what we take for granted today. Is half a day by sea from Athens. One of Greece's famous shipping magnates has flown us at his expense to his luxury yacht, so that I may talk to him about what it is to be a Greek islander and seafarer. When you come to Greece and you're told you're going to meet a Greek shipping magnate, you kind of hope that the boat will look like this. Fabulous. Kalimera.
Lovely, Captain Sarkos.
Captain Sarkos, how lovely to meet you.
Lovely to see you too. Lovely to have you on board.
Oh. Captain Sarkos is a self-made man with the sea in his blood. His family started as maritime traders, and over the centuries they've conquered the world's shipping routes. Despite Greece's economic woes, he still finds time to be on board his beautifully built ketch, the Christian B, which he bought from the Bulgari family.
I believe that we do have it in our DNA to live by the sea, for the sea, from the sea. What even created our nation was the sea, and the wealth and power that came from the sea. They transport foodstuff, they transport what is needed for the construction and the infrastructure. They transport what is needed for the energy, which is mainly coal and oil, and now gas.
The success of Captain Sarkos' family, and others like him, was born from necessity. Centuries ago, island life was poor, and it was difficult to eke out a living. So they took to the sea to seek their fortunes. And so the sea is what they became masters at. They ruled the sea, they ruled the ancient sea, and then with the great Greek shipping magnates, they ruled the modern seas as well. Captain Sarkos' forefathers would be green with envy over the technology available to seafarers today. Once many sailors would be required to set the sails. Now it all happens at the push of a button. I had no idea that you could set a sail by pressing just a lever, and that beautiful sail unrolling, furling like this.
Piano player has his keyboard.
Yeah, you've
this is
got
my
your
keyboard.
It's fantastic. Is that a Union Jack we're flying?
Pardon me?
What is this red flag? The red
This is the English flag.
It's the English flag.
English seaman's flag.
And why have we got the English flag up?
Because we have you on board.
Guests.
English
Is that
guests on
true?
board. Yes.
Well, that's fantastic.
The open seas, the distance between the two ships must be big enough so that you have the time to stop here or maneuver here. You take it a little bit more to the starboard, which is the right. You're doing very well. Fantastic.
Can't do the Poros Canal.
Well, the way you're going, we won't be surprised.
The Poros Canal is a narrow stretch of water which passes the tiny island of Poros, which coincidentally is where my affection for Greece began 40 years ago. I was sharing a flat in London and we decided to save up our money and come to Greece. This was 1966. And I'd been told to go to an island which I thought was Poros. So we bought our tickets and we came and we were brought by a ferry to this enchanting little town. And we found 2 rooms in villagers' houses and stayed there. And it was only later, actually during the trip, when somebody said, "Why did you come to Poros?" I said, "I think that's where we were told to go, Poros and Naxos." And they said, "Not Poros, it's Paros and Naxos." Paros, another bigger island, much further out. And you came to Poros. But by that time, we'd fallen in love. We had the best holiday you can imagine, and that is where my love affair with Greece started. It was just enchanting. Over the centuries, Greece's islands have attracted the attention of many invading forces. Perhaps the most famous of these is the Ottoman Empire. Between the 15th and 19th centuries, the Ottomans from Turkey dominated the seafaring nations of the Mediterranean, using the Greek islands as strategic bases for their ships. They were bitterly resented by the Greeks, whose own empire, 2,000 years before, had stretched from Athens to India. By the early 1800s, the people of Greece were on the verge of a revolution. One of the key revolutionaries was a woman called Bouboulina, who today is recognized as a national heroine. Her home has been preserved and is looked after by Philip Demertsis Bouboulis, a descendant of Bouboulina.
Yes, this is the big living room of Bouboulina's house. She was born actually inside a prison in Constantinople. She grew up here on Spetses. She married twice. Both her husbands died at sea with sea battles with the Barbarine pirates.
Did they have their own ships?
Their own ships,
yeah.
yes. And they used to take her. They used to take her with the ships. You know, something unheard in those days for a woman to sail. And she inherited a very large fortune, which she spent it in the first 3 years of the Greek War of Independence. She gave all her fortune for our freedom.
In 1820, Bouboulina used the wealth she inherited from her 2 seafaring husbands and built a small navy of 8 ships to blockade ports against the ruling Ottomans. A year later, she was raising the Greek flag, having helped to liberate Nafplion, the city which would become the new Greek capital.
Now there's a very famous painting here in Greece. It is the original, and it shows Bouboulina attacking the castles of Nafplion. Look at the way the painter has made the men inside the boat. Look at the
Cowering,
faces.
fear.
All of them, they are scared.
Yeah.
In comparison to the way he has made Bouboulina, you know, standing up, you know, fearless. She is the only woman in world naval history that she's got the title of an admiral. An honorary title given to her after her death. No?
But I think that must be a first in the whole world,
In the
isn't
whole
it?
world.
As she liberated islands and ports from the Ottomans, she risked her life to save others, particularly the women from the ruling pasha's harem. However, Bouboulina's last days were not to end at sea.
She had a very unfortunate end, of course. She was killed here on Spetses in a family argument, believe it or not.
After all
that. So it was a very
tragic
and inglorious, if you like, end for this woman that she did so much for her country.
Bouboulina may have had an inglorious end, but like our Boadicea, she's one of Europe's greatest heroines. Tomorrow, I'm travelling to Crete, Greece's largest island, whose history has been shaped by tyranny and warfare. Homer wrote in his epic poem, the Odyssey, "There is a land called Crete in the midst of the wine-dark sea, a fair, rich land." After such sentiment, who could resist the journey to Greece's far-flung outpost? Far behind me is mainland Greece and Athens. Far in front of me is Libya. But this island that we're coming into is Crete, the largest of all the Greek islands. This is its capital, Heraklion. Now, it was incredibly important both to the ancient Greeks and the Minoans and all the people before that because of its position. It was sitting bang in the middle of the ocean. Everybody who traded had to come past. It's fabulously beautiful. It's already got a feeling not quite of Greece, halfway between Greece and Africa, halfway to the beginning of the middle of the earth. And why not? Because it's the birthplace of Zeus, god of gods. Crete's position between Africa and Europe means that whoever controls the island commands the Mediterranean. Never was this more significant than in the Second World War. In 1941, Hitler, realizing the importance of Crete's position, ordered its invasion. It was the first airborne assault in military history, and the first time in the war that the Nazis encountered mass resistance from the local population. Some of the fighting took place near Mount Psiloritis, Zeus's birthplace. In its shadow lies a village called Anoia. Eleni Fanoriotou, my translator, has brought me to this small town, which was at the center of the Cretan resistance during the German occupation. Many of the townspeople here lost their lives as a result. During the occupation, Nikos Fasoulas, a bootmaker in the village, narrowly escaped execution by the Nazis.
Κύριε Νίκο, αυτή είναι η Joanna.
Nicholas.
Ah, Nicholas.
Nicholas.
Can I sit here? Hi. How long has he been a cobbler?
Άμα θα λογαριάσεις το 1940, το 1940 μπήκα στην τέχνη.
So he was making shoes during the war?
Πώς. Ξέραμε.
Can you tell me about that time?
Τι να σας πω, να μην ξαναγυρίσουν αυτά τα χρόνια. Αυτά τα χρόνια να μην ξανάρθουν. Είναι δύσκολα χρόνια.
Mr. Fasoulas was also an eyewitness to one of the most daring exploits of the Second World War, when two British agents, William Stanley Moss and Patrick Leigh Farmer, assisted by the Greek resistance, kidnapped the German commander of Crete, General Kreiper. Disguised as Germans, they passed through 22 checkpoints before climbing to the village of Anoia and spiriting him away to the mountains. It was a huge propaganda coup for the Allies, and later became the basis for the movie Ill Met by Moonlight. Did he see General Kreiper pass through?
Εγώ τον είδα.
You saw it? It's true. I saw him.
Το πρωί κατά τις 8, 7.30 ώρα με 8. Είστε 5 άτομα. Και ο Κράιπες στο 6.
The Germans pursued them for 18 days, but they were unable to stop the British taking the commander prisoner and transporting him to Cairo. In reprisal, it was ordered that every male in Anoia should be executed and that the town itself should be destroyed. He must have seen the terrible reprisals on this village. I read that it was razed to the ground.
Εγώ τη βίωσα την καταστροφή του χωριού γιατί ήμουν μεγάλος, σου είχα πει προχθές. Ήμουν 16-17 χρονών. Και όταν έρθουν οι Γερμανοί να το κάψουν, εγώ ήρθα στο βουνό.
Did you lose friends, personal close friends from this village during the reprisals?
Έχασα ένα πρώτο ξάδερφο, μια αδερφή μου, ένα θείο μου. Αυτά. Και όλο το χωριό έχει χάσει ανθρώπους.
Look at this. Order by the German general commander of the garrison of Crete. Because the town of Anoia is the center of the English intelligence on Crete, and because it was through Anoia that the kidnappers with General von Kuiper passed, using Anoia as a transit camp, we order its complete destruction and the execution of every male person of Anoia who would happen to be within the village and around it within a distance of 1 kilometer. So that was when this little village, this tiny town, was completely razed to the ground. Most of Anoia's 4,000 inhabitants sought safety in the mountains, while the Nazis took 3 weeks to destroy their town. Patrick Lee Farmer, one of the 2 British agents who kidnapped General von Kuiper, became a household name. His daring exploits are still told today. And there's a great story of General von Kuiper watching the dawn coming up one morning, making a great quote, and I'm ashamed to say I don't know whether it was in Greek or ancient Latin. And Patrick Lee Farmer completed the quote, and they looked at each other and realized that without a war they would have been friends. They were just people of exactly the same kind of background. Vital to the operation to kidnap the general was the Crete resistance. When they weren't fighting the Germans, they lay low in the mountains, living with the shepherds. The shepherds' descendants still tend their flocks as they would have done during the war. One of the shepherds, Manolis, is taking me to the very same pastures. We're going up in this. It's a 4x4. The track gets very tough from here on. It's easy to see how the resistance fighters could have melted away into this landscape. Γεια σας, Γιάννη.
Τη Ζωάννα. Καλώς ήρθατε στα Νόγια.
Thank you.
Καλώς ήρθατε. Καλώς ήρθατε. Περάστε, να δούμε λίγη από την ετοιμασία μας.
Γεια σας.
Ο Δημήτρης, ο Κώστας, ο αδερφός του Μανώλη και ο Γιώργος. Ζωάννα.
This way of life hasn't changed much for centuries. Cretan resistance fighters would have had to live much like these shepherds do today, on a basic diet of meat and cheese.
The way that we make it, and the meat and the cheese, is from very, very old years.
Yes.
From very, very old years. And we have the tradition and we keep it.
Can I feel?
Yes, yes.
So it actually feels at the moment just like milk. But presumably with this heat underneath it, it's kind of thickening up like custard.
The women are better in that from the men.
Oh, I see.
The men are better in the meat.
I see. Woman's task. Men sitting watching meat and women actually stirring, I see. Look, special sheep milking trousers going on here. When the fighters weren't disrupting the Germans, they would have had to chip in with the work in the fields. Well, I watch you first, I think. Dimitri, you show me. You show me.
Dimitri show me. Dimitri is one of the best.
Yes. You show me once, you show me once, and I'll have a go. Forgive me for not having a go at milking, because the thing is that if it was one sheep, very tame sheep, and it was very calm and there was nothing much happening, I could have a go at it and get it badly wrong, because it's quite a skill. with a hairy avalanche waiting. You can sense, you know, there's quite a sort of expectation here that it's going to be done and done properly. And I'd mess it up. You know what I mean? Ooh, a lovely jump there. You just can't tell which ones are going to jump and which ones aren't. You see one, think that's a jump, and then you think this one isn't. But it is. It's classic. East along the coast from Heraklion, there is a tiny fishing village which sits opposite the island of Spinalonga. In the past, locals used the heavy fortress to protect themselves from pirates. More recently, in the first half of the last century, Spinalonga was one of the last leper colonies in Europe. Aris, a local boatman, has kindly agreed to take me to the island. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Though leprosy has been virtually eradicated in Europe, hundreds of thousands of new cases still occur each year in the developing world.
It's an archaeological place. That was the hospital.
This one here?
Yes, the big one in the middle was the hospital. Spinalonga, it was like a real town. The people had the private houses.
Yeah.
You can see the small buildings.
Yes.
They had the cafe, they had a normal life. The only difference was that it was like a prison. If somebody was inside, he was not allowed to go out.
The doctors and nurses, they lived here or they came across?
Yes, they was here, live with the sick people together.
I don't know much about leprosy. Do you catch leprosy or how do you get it?
The truth is that nobody knows yet how you can get leprosy. They found the medicine, everybody's okay, but they can't find how
it started?
Yes.
In the 1940s, an effective treatment for leprosy was discovered, and Spinalonga was finally abandoned in 1957.
Just over here is the main gate. The people from here, when they passed this gate, was only lepers. Nobody else except the lepers.
This must have been frightening to come here as a leper and to make your first entrance through a sort of...
Yes, the first feeling when you come in this island.
Big iron gates and then...
Yes.
In 1904, 251 patients were settled on the island. And then during its 50 years as a leper colony, more than 1,000 people passed through its gates. Once on the island, the patients received food, water and social security, as well as medical treatment. Aris's great-grandmother was a nurse here.
The way to the hospital.
And here's the hospital.
The doctors and the nurses, all these people was here every day, take care the people. The life was very hard. I know stories from my grandmother. It was really difficult also for these people.
I think people thought it was a disease you could catch.
If you want to try to go inside, maybe we can do it.
It says no entry. Okay.
You want to try?
Yeah, I do. Big windows, high ceilings.
Yes.
Windows with bars on them. Look at this. This must have been some sort of sick bay with such high windows with the old shutters.
You know, they have so big windows and it's so high because the air have to pass, because the smell, it was really bad.
It smelled?
Yes, the sick people had a very, very bad smell. Imagine here, all sick people are in the beds to see the village and all the area outside, and they don't have the chance to go from here.
And if they were in this hospital, they knew they were going to die.
Yes.
Just as Scotland produces the finest whiskey in the world, the area to the east of Spinalonga reportedly produces the finest raki on the island of Crete. The favourite drink in Greece is raki. They drink ouzo, they drink metaxa brandy and so on, but raki is what everybody drinks. It's a sort of local moonshine, local hooch. I imagine it differs from area to area, and I thought that it might be made like all white spirits from, I don't know, potatoes or sort of celery choppings, but it's not. It's made from grape skins. I've drunk it. I love it. I think it's delicious. You don't drink lots of it. You just have small amounts. But today I'm going to a town, a little village called Sitia, and I'm going to meet somebody who's going to show me how he makes it, because apparently each family makes its own. I never really thought of that.
Stelios Patrakis has the biggest raki-making still, or kazani, allowed for personal consumption in the region.
Yes, thank you. Yes, yes.
Yes.
Smells beautiful.
Είναι αγνό ποτό, ωραίο ποτό. Πολύ ωραίο.
It's wonderful. I can't think how to say wonderful.
Είναι υπέροχο.
Είναι.
Είναι υπέροχο.
Όπως είναι και κριτική.
The grapes are mulched down in water and then heated over an open fire. Steam rises through the teapot-shaped kazani and is then cooled in a tank of cold water, and as it cools, it turns back into liquid. And the liquid is pure alcohol. And the first, which comes from the woody stem of the grape, is lethal. It's 98% proof, and the old women here use it for medical purposes. They use it for cleaning and for back rubs and things, alcohol rubs. You've heard of this. But the second is this unbelievably pure, clean liquid. And you don't get hangovers from things like this because there's nothing added. It's completely pure. Once the first woody alcohol is taken off, you've just got this extraordinarily clean, pure stuff. So it just takes 2 hours to make this dancing mixture. It's unbelievable. And quite a large quantity of it, too. Just taste it again to make sure, you know. Do you know, it tastes better with every sip. You become slightly less articulate, but more appreciative with every sip. Several times a year, family and friends get together for prolonged raki-making sessions. Tastings are an excuse for a huge feast.
Lovely little olives.
The cooking is overseen by Stelios' wife.
Now this is extraordinary because it's a most wonderful way of eating globe artichokes, which is, in the northern countries, we tend to boil them entirely until the leaves become loose enough to drop off. Then you scrape the leaf, cut the choke out, and just eat the artichoke out. Here they cut them and eat them raw. In fact, it's just the same thing. You eat as much as it. And sometimes when you take it, you can scrape it with your teeth. Then you eat these lovely crunchy bits. But these bits, which usually are cooked here, they eat raw with lemon juice on. It's wonderful. We can try that at home.
The traditional music, played in part on a Greek lyre, is accompanied by equally traditional Greek dancing. Under the influence of the raki, and against my better judgment, I'm persuaded by Stelios' friends to take part.
This idea of utter hell is being made to do dancing without any tuition. They're pretending that it's completely normal. I've got a lunatic on my right who thinks he's leading the dance.
Across the Aegean Sea is an island which played a significant part in the lives of the ancient Greeks. Kos was a destination for the sick who wanted to be healed. What began here thousands of years ago continues to play a significant part in our lives today. For this is the birthplace of Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine.
He believed in clinical observation, logical analysis, and the healing power of nature. He believed in putting the patient at the center of the diagnosis. He believed in diet, he believed in a healthy environment, and above all, he managed to tell people that it wasn't their fault that they were ill. It wasn't a punishment from the gods. It was simply because the body was sick. So he managed to separate completely religion and medicine for the first time ever.
To this day, many doctors still take the Hippocratic Oath before they practice medicine. They say Hippocrates, though mortal, is descended from the god of healing, Asclepius. Manolis, a local historian, is taking me to the Asclepion, a sort of health spa and healing sanctuary.
Some scholars say that in fact Asclepius was the first real doctor. He was human. And after being so good and so perfect in medicine, after he died, they made him a god.
Oh, I see.
And they invented the myth.
That's very rare, isn't it, to be made a god?
Yes, it's very rare. And Hippocrates, who is a descendant from Asclepius, is the 18th descendant of the god himself, of Asclepius.
So medicine running in the family?
Yes, exactly. That was the way.
Yes.
There were hundreds of Asclepions in ancient Greece, but now, looking at these abandoned ruins, it's quite difficult to imagine them buzzing with life.
There should be in more than one terraces, so in most cases there would be 3.
So we're on the... Is this the first terrace
Yes,
here?
this is the first terrace, which was devoted to the body. The second one would be devoted to the soul, and the third one to the spirit. Body, soul, spirit. And here we would have the rooms for the patients, all surrounding the first terrace.
So like a great sort of hospital laid out
Yes,
here?
exactly, exactly.
Also, they've chosen the most beautiful position.
It was a prerequisite to have a unique location.
And presumably a prerequisite to have water.
Yes, exactly. Very interesting statuette up at the top.
It looks like Pan or something.
Exactly, the small god of the woods. Half a goat, half a human.
I think he's playing a pipe.
Exactly, the pan pipe.
The pan pipe. It's like the Green Man. We have the Green Man in England, who's very like Pan. He lived in the woods. He had no sort of morals as we have them. Everything was fine.
All right.
All animals were good, all this was good. You take that, it's yours, it doesn't matter, I have it. I'll leave you, I love you, I leave you. He had no morals.
Something like the 70s.
Something like the 70s, actually, with pan pipes and letting the hair go.
Having fun, celebrating.
Above the hospital stood the temples, so that patients could worship their gods and show their gratitude.
People therefore came here with a sense of absolute purpose. They came because they were ill or they wanted to get well, but they knew, they had the faith already. They knew their God was here.
Yes.
They would bring what? What would they offer?
They would expect you to bring something, for example, an animal.
Yeah.
You didn't have any money. You could always find some nuts, some milk. In most cases, the animal would be killed, cut, the intestines would be burnt. So the smoke will go up to the gods from Olympus and they would be pleased that you're remembering them, but the rest of the animal would be eaten.
The ancient Greeks realized they couldn't be healed through worship alone. So through incredible foresight, they also built a medical school inside the grounds of the temple to teach the science of Hippocrates.
Here it would be something like a podium. Their teacher would be here teaching them the lesson. Hippocrates was the first one to cry out and say that there is never an illness without a natural cause. Before him, they believed very much that the gods were given the illnesses. Hippocrates said, I respect the gods, but I'm sorry, there is never an illness without a natural cause. He went so far that until the 19th century, his books were still being studied worldwide. So here we are at the third terrace.
Just like today, sadly not all illnesses could be healed. So on the third terrace was a temple where those about to die could give their soul and spirit to the gods.
Yes.
And what did it look like?
It looked like something that you wouldn't want to miss and something that would make you feel so humble, so small, that by giving your soul to the god, you were sure that you would be healed.
This was majestic, enormous.
Exactly.
Dominating this hillside.
Exactly.
sunrise on Kos. Manolis has arranged a trip to the neighbouring island of Nisyros, which is home to an active volcano. Kos and Nisyros are part of a chain of volcanic islands which stretches across the Aegean. In Greek mythology, Poseidon is the tempestuous god of the sea, who was seen to throw a huge rock at an escaping Titan. As it crashed into the water, that rock became the volcanic island of Nisyros. And every time the volcano erupts, people believe it is the pinned-down Titan trying to escape. The last eruption was in 1888. Nisyros is a tiny island, and one of its few vehicles is the school bus, which we commandeer for the day. The volcano with its 5 craters covers almost half the surface area of the entire island. Stephanos is the biggest of the 5 craters. The smell, it's sort of sulphurous, but it's got even another smell on the back of it as well.
Yes. And what is really unique is that he's alive. He's changing all the time, depending on the weather, depending on the wind. If it is rain, it's never the same.
And the fumaroles, how close to them can we get?
Not really close, because as close as we get, the crust is thinner.
Yeah.
Because the steam that comes out from the fumaroles is up to 100 degrees of Celsius.
Look at these fantastic colours, this sour yellow and baked. This must have been from what, rain and then drying out?
Exactly.
If you listen, you can actually hear it bubbling.
Yes.
This is not good to touch, is it?
Not good to touch. One of the nicknames is akolos.
Akolos.
Kolos is bum. Exactly. Akolos, bumless. So, if you sit, you're going to burn. It's acid.
I'm quite enchanted that in such a place of desolation and sort of absence of life, there are such stunning patterns. You couldn't find an art designer to make you lovelier, more beautiful arrangements of how it dries. It's as if nature just doesn't have to bother to be ugly or horrible.
Nature
is
an artist
around everything,
herself.
it's just beautiful. They don't suddenly just go blip like that, do they?
Sometimes.
Oh, well, okay.
Sometimes. That's why you should never go.
No, I'm honestly not going to do that. I think I'll just not do that. This feels almost as though we're on another planet here.
Yeah. Some say it resembles the moon, how the moon would be looking like. That's why Moonraker was shot here.
Moonraker?
Yes.
The Bond film?
Yes.
Roger Moore?
Exactly. Some shots of the moon.
Yeah.
They were just exactly where we are right now.
How extraordinary. We're catching the ferry to Patmos. We've got about 10 minutes to get all this stuff on. I can't tell you how much stuff we travel with. I haven't got a ticket. I've got a 10.
Thank you very much.
It's rather hairy. I mean, there's a sense that these really only stop. They're not really concerned. They just say, we're stopping, 10 minutes. It goes up, gone.
The ferry from Kos to Patmos takes just an hour and a half, stopping equally briefly at the islands of Kalymnos, Leros and Lipsi.
Trying to get your head around the idea that this is all one country, that it's absolutely customary to travel by boat all the time, because everywhere feels like little different nations almost. We're zipping around like this, and they're all different little islands. And they're all Greece. It's wonderful. This, however, is not Greece. This is Turkey, just there. But in the old days, of course, it was ancient Greece. Just down the coast is a place which used to be called Halikarnassus and is now called Bodrum. You can take a ferry from Kos to Bodrum. It takes 19, 20 minutes. over there, and that's where the master of history, the first man to write history in a way that made it a story that people could understand. He wasn't always dead accurate, but he was considered to be the very, very first great historian. His name was Herodotus. Magical man, fantastical. I love people who, when they can't really get all the facts, just make it up. I think we do probably the same today, actually.
Patmos is dominated by an 11th century monastery dedicated to St. John the Divine, who was exiled to this small island by the Romans in the 1st century AD. It was while living here in isolation in a cave that he dictated the last book of the New Testament, Revelations, to his faithful assistant.
This is just extraordinary. This must have been the entrance to the cave. This is the cleft in the rock through which he heard apparently the voice of God speaking. Just through here. And now we're inside the cave. We would have looked straight out, down over the hills to the sea. He'd been exiled. Now, maybe just because he was a troublemaker, or maybe ancient Rome had sent him away. But anyway, he stayed here for about 2 years in this cave. The cave is dappled with these dints, and he found a dint here. And apparently this is where he lay and slept. So they've made a little crown over that holy place. And because he was quite an old man, when he got up, he'd found a little notch in the wall, which he used to put his hand in, pull himself up through that. Here we see John resting, receiving the wisdom, and here, supported by angels, are the 7 churches of Asia Minor. And the stories he was receiving in this sort of period of intense meditation were absolutely phenomenal. And I don't think it matters really which religion you are. To read the book of Revelations is in itself a revelation. So many of the words we know and so many of the things we say, like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, that's from the Revelations. Fire and brimstone, a bottomless pit, ruling with a rod of iron. All these phrases come from the book of Revelations. What an extraordinary place. It's always very strange to know that where you are is exactly where people from biblical times or history books or legends were. Here, it was here. Now, and we're just heading towards Athens, and it's the end of this extraordinary journey around some of these islands in Greece. It has been eye-opening. I don't think I ever realized how different every single island was. Each one seems to have its own character, its own, sometimes its own customs, its own particular pride in its own olives or wine or particular cheese-making skills or its own history. But the thing that has impressed me most is that how far-flung Greece is through her 1,400 islands. How do you make a country like that work? Of course, it's only quite recently that it has been Greece as we know it as a country. Before it, it was the Hellenic people, the Hellenes, who spread all over these lands with their own particular customs and enmities between each other, all uniting against the yokes of countless empires which seem to have trodden all over them. And yet at the end, they spring back again. Absolutely amazing. And still the Greeks are grounded, as it were, if that's not the wrong word, in the sea. And I think that's what's made it so thrilling.
In the last episode of my Odyssey, I shall travel to the fiery heart of Greece.
Whoa, little boys! Oh my God, it's just strangely scary. climb halfway to heaven to visit the gods on Mount Olympus, and see monasteries suspended in the air.